Welcome to Broncos Country Tonight. Big show for you tonight. Steve Atwater is going to join us coming up here in a little bit to talk about the match. Also, Matt Boyer interviewed Noah Fant, Jerry Jeudy, and KJ Hamler. So, again, big show for you tonight. Benjamin, though, we're going to start with the Bill Barnwell piece on who had the best offseason. Now, I know what you're going to say. Winning the offseason doesn't necessarily matter, but the Broncos finished top three, so I can only imagine that translates immediately into the season. They're going to finish top three in the season. No, I'm just kidding. But really, one of the things that Bill Barnwell pointed out that I thought was very appropriate was talking about kind of some of the deals that John Elway ended up getting. The Jarrell Casey one, I think, stands out. Trading a seventh rounder for a five-time Pro Bowler always will stand out. He also liked the A.J. Bouye deal with the fourth rounder. And then the Shelby Harris deal. You kind of waited long enough for that to kind of come back around and get a starter. Which one of those deals did you like the best?
Well, in terms of an actual deal, I think I would prefer the Casey deal. That's just going bargain shopping, looking for a team that's trying to shed salary, lowballing an offer, and happening to strike gold. So in terms of which deal I like the best, that one probably. I love having Shelby back personally on a personal level, but that was more of a luck situation. Luck of the market not shaking out. Once the Colts went out and got Buckner from the Niners, that really shifted the entire defensive tackle market. And it changed things for Shelby. So getting Shelby back at 25 cents on the dollar, while a steal, really was the Broncos backdooring their way into that one.
But in the end, as history will show, the Broncos were able to execute a really strong deal, even if at the time, and I remember this when it came out, because our guy BK ended up breaking that, there was a little bit of a, whoa, is this really all coming together so fast? Because there was an expectation that he really was going to get a much bigger deal, wasn't there?
Yeah, the market for him had been projected to be about 4 times as high as what he ultimately got. And to be honest with you, the strongest offers were coming out of Cincinnati and Indianapolis, 2 teams that ultimately went in different directions with DJ Reader and DeForest Buckner. So, like I said, that really shifted the market on him. Rather than trying to reset, regroup with his agent, and work on a second and third tier deal, I think Shelby just decided, you know what, I'll come back to Denver one more year, prove it one more time, we'll go from there.
Now, Bill Barnwell was critical of a couple of things for the Broncos. The first one, the Melvin Gordon deal. We've come around on this several times. I know you've had your feelings on it as well. A lot of national media have had their similar idea about whether or not that this was a really good deal for the Broncos, considering the success they've had with Philip Lindsay. Well, Ben, let's ask you like this. What would it take for you and a lot of these critics to come around on that deal for Melvin Gordon?
Melvin to finish top half of the league in situational running. Third down, short yardage situations, areas where the Broncos have ranked 28th over the last couple of years in the NFL. You need to be in the top half of the league in those type of situations. Melvin Gordon's been number 2 in the league, so that bodes well or portends well for him. But I didn't like Melvin Gordon, the contract. I like Melvin Gordon, the player, don't get me wrong. I didn't like Melvin Gordon, the contract. I wanted that money to be spent on another corner in a position I feel the Broncos are perilously thin. But in the end, it is what it is. They had the money. They're able to execute the deal, and I'm hoping that Melvin comes in and executes to the level they believe he can.
It does certainly feel like some of the critics, it doesn't really ultimately matter. I think that's a very fair assessment, a very fair request there of Melvin Gordon. I think that feels fair, Ben, talking about Melvin Gordon finishing top half in situational opportunities. But let's say, I'm going to ask you one more question here about the offense. Do you think John Elway did enough? Is there anything else you would have added to the offensive side of the ball?
I suppose you could have gotten a depth tackle. I know Tackle Bro out there was talking about drafting a tackle, and we don't need any of that. But going out there and signing a vet min like Kelvin Beachum, which remains a possibility for the Broncos, I think that would probably go a long way. Although they like some of their developmental options, I wouldn't mind having a steady hand that's worked with Mike Munchak before.
Okay, so yeah, that actually kind of leads us directly in there, because the other criticism was the fact that they didn't add somebody to compete with Garrett Bowles. Now, we know that Elijah Wilkinson's going to be that guy, and because of that, maybe the Broncos feel like they're pretty set right now. You mentioned Kelvin Beachum, that he mentioned Jason Peters. You already said that that's probably not going to happen. So, what do you put the percentage on that the Broncos actually bring somebody else in to compete there, or do they just stay pat?
I think they're going to stand pat until they have to make a move. I think that's the position they're in right now. If they get into camp and Garrett and Elijah aren't cutting it, then they'll look at that. I think the Broncos are going to approach this as, hey, this is what we got. This is what we like. We're going to go into it with this. And if we need to make adjustments along the way, we got your number and we're happy to do it.
If they do stay pat, does that say more about Elijah? Does that say more about Garrett, in your opinion?
I think it says the same about both. I think it says they're satisfied with whichever one they feel comfortable with. I think one of the two will distinguish themselves, the one they feel comfortable with. Right now, Garrett's going to have the inside track on that, but maybe Elijah passes and we'll see. I think it really just says, hey, we're comfortable with what we have, and this is what we're going with.
Yeah, and it feels like, again, I know we point to those last few games with Garrett Bowles and what he was able to show, but we can't forget that there was a point where when they were hoping Juwan James came back, that they might consider even subbing in Elijah over the left side. They did talk a little bit about that. Now, this is a little bit outside the box, okay? So before you throw anything at me, just understand. There was a time when Gary Kubiak was here, for example, that they did have rotating offensive linemen. You don't see it very often at left tackle, but would you consider potentially a rotation?
Potentially. I don't like that idea. One guy wins the job. I think that's the way you need to go. But if there's reason for a rotation, then keeping guys fresh, maybe you could do something like that. Last year as the season wore on, that scenario that you posited was one that was becoming a reality. If Juwan James had come back right around the Colts game, that really would have been a scenario in which Garrett would have taken a seat. Elijah would have gotten a chance to play left tackle. So, I think they're happy. I think they like the potential of those two. They're going to put them out there and make one of those guys earn it. Hopefully competition makes their first round pick step up where he needs to. And if not, well, then, they like the possibility of Elijah Wilson.